Kia ora talofa namaste, haere mai, and welcome to The Niche Cases, our weekly podcast where we go deep into Aotearoa sporting matters. I might just try and workshop it. Let's have a crack, because we come out the gate swinging. We come out the gate and it's shut the gate. And I'm here to start the podcast with a belief, a sizzling hot take. I kind of reckon Ardie Savea is the best rugby player from New Zealand of my lifetime. And I think he's better than Richie McCaw. And I think he's better than anyone else you want to throw at me. I'm just not saying it full steak and cheese at the moment because I'm a bit scared, bit timid. It's obviously outside my realm of expertise, but I always see Ardie Savea do shit that other rugby players don't do. And the only player I can think of in the world who is of a similar class as Ardie Savea is Antoine Dupont. And respect to Beauden Barrett, because I've seen him do kicks off both feet and all that stuff. Like Beauden Barrett, he's got skills to pay the bills. But I genuinely, well, not genuinely, because I'm not saying like full steak and cheese, but I do think Ardie Savea, he's better than Richie McCaw. He's better than Dan Carter. He's better than any All Black you want to throw at me. Ardie Savea is better than all of them. And yeah.
Well, I'm not gonna agree or disagree. I'm gonna step aside and let that let the hot take have have a little bit of fresh air there that it may require, because I just don't watch enough rugby to be able to have an opinion on that. But I did see that he won some sort of Super Rugby, whatever they're calling it these days, MVP award, where he's like got an unassailable lead on the points tally with a couple rounds to go, or however close. It feels like there's been 1 or 2 rounds to go until playoffs for like a month now. So I don't know exactly how that competition works. But um, while they were showing that on the news, and I just happened to be walking through the room as that was on, I did notice him doing like a little chip and chase into the over the top. I'm like, well, that's insane. That's a back rower doing that. That's crazy stuff. But then I was also trying to figure out how he's won some kind of MVP award while the season's still going. And it turns out they do that thing where they like the coaches and the captain vote for the best players on the other team from every game. And I heard that and thought, hey, that's exactly what New Zealand football used to do. And they always used to pick the wrong MVP because it was just the best player on the worst team, because the best player on the worst team has no competition. And you're not basing it on results if you're just giving every coach and captain picks the best players from the other team. It's not saying only from the winning team. It's like every player, every team from every game is getting votes. And the team that tend to be quite bad because they have fewer good players, well, then the good players they do have stand out more and get more points and blah blah blah. But you're telling me that they actually picked the right guy from this formula, so that's good to know, because New Zealand football never quite figured that one out.
I'm not telling you anything about Super Rugby Awards. Let's get that
Yeah,
straight.
okay.
I'm telling you that I believe Ardie Savea is the best New Zealand rugby union player of my lifetime. And if you want to go nitty gritty, oh, Richie McCaw won the World Cups, Dan Carter won the World Cups. Look at their team. The team for both those World Cups was absolutely stacked with elite All Blacks. And I've been watching Ardie Savea do grubbers, do chip and chases, do long kicks, do turnovers, play 6, 7, 8 for 10 years. And I won't get into the nitty gritty of why many in Aotearoa may not view Ardie Savea as the best All Black of my lifetime. But we all know why. So shout out to Ardie Savea. I love watching play the rugby unions. I once again respect to Moana Pacifica. I would like to see Moana Pacifica fill up North Harbour Stadium's top tiers. I think that's their next major objective, because we know North Harbour Stadium, you got one grandstand, shout out, nice atmosphere. You got one grandstand, got a couple of banks. I think the next level for Moana Pacifica as an organization is to go to maybe get some fans in the next tier up. maybe open up the next two tiers of the one grandstand at North Harbour Stadium. But personally, I'm more of a Fijian drawer type of guy. They're my favourite team because they play the best rugby unions. And it was a crazy weekend of Aotearoa sport, not just because, I mean, it was a fantastic Saturday. What do we have? Black Ferns. There was, shout out to Canada, Caesar getting that good result against the Black Ferns. And then the Warriors. Then there was, I think the Ardie Savea game came after that. But the big idea in my mind, aside from going back and forth if I'm willing to go public about my belief that Ardie Savea is better than Richie McCaw, is better than Dan Carter, Bowden Barrett, anyone else you want to throw at me, definitely better than Marty Holler. I'd say he's better than Paul Tito.
Let's not get hasty here.
I might even go as far as saying that Ardie Savea is a better rugby union player than Sitiveni Sivivatu. Maybe even, who's the Northland first five? David Howell. Howell?
Yeah, Howell.
Howell, yeah. I mean, shout out to the legendary rugby union players of Aotearoa, but Ardie Savea is better than you all. The big idea in my mind, aside from that, was the away wins of Aotearoa sport this weekend. Because the Warriors, third win in a row in Australia against the Dolphins. And we'll get into plenty of Warriors, as we usually do. But if you hear anyone talking down on the Warriors, if you see anyone talking down on the Warriors, oh, blah, 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 rah, 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 this, that, you can just throw the fact that the New South Wales Cup Warriors, the reserve grade team, are first in the New South Wales Cup. They've got a 9-1 record. And guess what? They had an away win against the Roosters over the weekend. They're 4-0 away from home this season. So shout out to them. What did I have what's my big number for the Warriors combined? 17-3 in the NRL New South Wales Cup this season. It's undeniable, let's be honest. So the Warriors, NRL New South Wales Cup, they had wins in Australia. Auckland FC versus Melbourne Victory. They had a win in Australia, 1-0. We also had New Zealand A, the New Zealand A cricket team. Lots of interesting stuff here that we'll discuss later on in the podcast. Might have crept under your radar. They defeated Bangladesh A in Bangladesh. Another away victory for the New Zealand A cricket team. Guess what? Third unofficial test match victory for New Zealand A. Because the last time they played a long-form series, they had 2 wins over Australia in Australia. Australia A. So good away victory there. And because it's going to be on topic in a jiffy, and I saw Hayden Jones, another young basketball freak from Aotearoa, I saw him play a key role for the Nelson Giants against the Franklin Bulls in Pukekohe. Well, the Nelson Giants, they had 2 away wins in round 9 of the NBL because before that, they had a win against Hawke's Bay. So shout out to Aotearoa, specifically the teams who won outside of Aotearoa in Australia, in Bangladesh, but also shout out to the Nelson Giants because, like, they're not that good. They're 3-9 this season in the NBL, and 2 of those wins just came in the last round of basketball away from home. So shout out to the away victories. And I don't know what you got in store for mindfulness, but there's some mindfulness right there. You have a crack.
Well, there was also, like, you know, a lack of Auckland FC chat in that roundup as well, which is, well, I'm sure we'll talk plenty on that and the thing like that. We could have easily focused on that for the same, like, all the stuff the Warriors are doing, Auckland FC have been doing as well. Like they're winning away, grinding out good results, winning some flashy games as well. Not as many of those for either of those teams, but the consistency and the blah blah blah, all them things just seem to apply across the board with those two at the moment. So yeah, lovely stuff. Lovely stuff. Love seeing the Kiwi teams winning in Australia and beyond.
Yeah, but you interrupted my mindfulness about getting spiritual about away wins. As a person, you got to get your away wins. You got to step up under adversity, away from home, enemy turf. What are you made of? What is your mana? Because Auckland FC, their mana is that their fans cram into the smallest section of that stadium and take it over with a 1-0 victory. And shout out to the security guard when Logan Rogerson went to celebrate. The security guard, he tried to get between Logan Rogerson and the port. And he just ended up being part of the celebrations. And that is one of my favorite things about sport that I don't see enough of. Like, if you score a try, you make a point or whatever you're going to do in a game of sport, there is always an opportunity for you to just go up to the fan and give the fan a high five. Give the fan a hug and force the security guard to make a decision. That's what I want to see more of. And that security guard, he was doing his job, but it's a tough job when you're between Logan Rogerson and a ruckus Auckland FC team, then their fans getting the dub. So shout out to anyone listening around Aotearoa and the whole wide world who's getting their away wins. Because that's what we're here to do. We're here to get the wins away from home, get back to the whare, and get another win. That's all we're here to do. Win, win, win. I will poo-poo Auckland FC because their reserves had a home win. So if we're getting reserve grade chat, if we're going that deep, which you wanted to do straight away, if we're going to be chatting reserve grade, Auckland FC, not good enough because you had a 2-1 win over Bay Olympic at home, which I assume is the Fred Taylor. Old Freddie Taylor.
One. They did win at Kiwitea Street a couple of weeks ago, but I don't know. Relevant. Everyone seems to be winning at Kiwitea Street these days. It doesn't really count. As you're talking as well about the port, like being able to cram in their section, they're not very nice across the A. There's been a bit of chat about how the Phoenix and Auckland FC themselves have handled that away base stuff, but it seems to be pretty similar across all of the A leagues, where it's like, let's put the away fans in the smallest little corner section and pack them in. But then those away fans often, making as much noise as everyone else. But then the contrast I was thinking of is when the Warriors play away, for example, especially when the Warriors play away in Queensland, it's almost not even an away game. Like, it's an away game for the players. You got to travel, you got to do all that stuff. But the Warriors fans were louder than the Dolphins fans in that game. And that's not uncommon. Like, that happens at least 50% of the times that the Warriors play in Australia.
On that tip, I think the next major checkpoint is doing that against the Broncos at Suncorp. And I mean, we might as well just keep going deeper. This is what we do. We go deep into Aotearoa sport, into our sporting realms. Yes, Michael Maguire, very good for the Kiwis, very good for New South Wales. Don't know if he's a good NRL coach, because the last thing he did was coach the Tigers. They sucked. Now he's coaching the Broncos. They kind of suck. And if they keep sucking and they keep having drama, because I think the Broncos are the most dramatic NRL team, because even when there's no drama, there's a drama. If that continues, and I need to pull up the NRL draw, because I do think the Warriors will be playing the Broncos again, maybe. Saturday, the 28th of June, 5 p.m, Suncorp Stadium. Here's hoping the Broncos drama continues. The Warriors groove continues, because when the Warriors go to play the Broncos at Suncorp Stadium, there's going to be even more fans there from Aotearoa Warriors fandom. not from Aotearoa, but from the Warriors fandom, they will be just as loud as the Broncos fans. They will take over Suncorp Stadium, and it will be even crazier than what we saw for the Dolphins, let alone Magic Round. So I'm here for it because, like you, I did jot it down. Where are the Dolphins fans? What are you doing? It's not your home ground because your home ground's in Redcliffe, but it's your big Donny Stadium trying to get more fans, more atmosphere at Suncorp Stadium. You just got completely washed away as a team and in the stands and the crowd by the Aotearoa Warriors. Shout out to domestic football because you do have your weekly domestic football deep dive on our website right now, theniche-case.com. And I think the best recipe maybe for us moving forward is just to put the spotlight on something like domestic football for the bonus podcast, which is available on Patreon and for paid Substack subscribers. So I think we might just stash that away in the jar to chat a lot about domestic football, and we'll see what else pops up because that's what we do for the bonus podcast. We just see what else pops up. But if you are looking for more domestic football, local football, chit-chat, kōrero, we will be going deeper in our bonus podcast that we record on Thursdays, which is available on Patreon, which is available for paid Substack subscribers. Patreon's a great way to support our work. A couple of dollars a month. You get the bonus pod, you get the full newsletter copied into Patreon the morning after, because the newsletter via Substack, theniche-case.substack.com, has a full-on free section, which is full of Aotearoa sporting information. There's nothing else like it on the whole wide world. But there's also a paid section that is available for folks who want to help us do what we love to do. And the bonus podcast is part of that paid section on a Thursday when we send out our newsletter. Yesterday, we had our Monday newsletter where all sorts of notes, nuggets, bits and pieces were rolled out, and they help us build the podcast discussion here today. You can also donate through Buy Me a Coffee. We got the Patreon, we got the Substack, we got the Buy Me a Coffee. That if you're enjoying our work and you want us to buy a new microphone, buy a new camera, put some petrol in our tanks, and help us do what we love to do, because to be honest, might need a new microphone, but we're doing our best here. You can join us on Patreon. Join the Patreon whānau, patreon.com/EL niche-case. Substack, theniche-case.substack.com. Buy me a coffee /the niche case. And of course, we're poharas. So if you're out there scrapping for gritty away wins, doing your best, having a crack, and you can't afford to help us do what we love to do, that's all good, because you're just doing your best. And you're listening to us right now, and that's more than enough. You can subscribe on YouTube. You can like the video on YouTube. You can leave a review on Spotify or Apple. You can just tune in, because your tuning in helps us tune out. How about that? Because you know what we're doing after this? We're getting into the bush. We're tuning out. We're getting away from the interwebs, and we're going to help fine-tune our Aotearoa sporting theories, hypotheses. Speaking of hypotheses and theories and parting of the seas. Any other rhyming words you can think of right there?
Hypotheses, right? Where are you? Splitting of the seas. I don't know. Many. There are many, but let's maybe keep it rolling rather than me trying to pluck random words out of my head.
Well, hit us with the mindfulness.
Well, speaking of plucking random words, yeah, I did this. The mindfulness is just one word here. So it's I saw it on a tweet. And normally I put a little bit more effort into the mindfulnesses than that, but sometimes you just gotta take what you're given, right? So I saw it, and I liked it. It is an Inuit word, ayurnamat, Ayurnamat. It means the philosophy that there is no point in worrying about events that cannot be changed. And I don't know if we have a word for that in English, so we got to borrow the Inuit one. Ayurnamat.
Hypotheses, philosophies, Socrates
Yeah.
philosophies. That's the old, I think that's Jizza from the Wu-Tang Clan. Because unlike you, I am a freestyle rapper and I can't
Yeah.
spit off the top of the dome, but that's all right. Give me the word again.
Ayurnamat.
Ayurnamat.
I can't guarantee the pronunciation, but it's got the little with the some letters capitalized and little dashes in there to try give you a hint. So that's as close as I can get. Respect to the Inuit and to the Inuit people if I got it wrong, but a Euronimat.
And that is basically don't worry about what you can't change.
Indeed.
I like it. Probably need to deploy a bit more a Euronimat.
We all do. That's probably why there isn't an English word for it yet.
Yeah, it's a good point. Maybe the English speaking folks need to chill out and just relax themselves and meditate a bit more to be able to release that which they can no longer change and which they can't control. Steven Adams is in a little period of control because he's a free agent. And I just want to get your vibe right now. What is your favorite possible could happen? You want to see it happen. Steven Adams destination for next season because he is a free agent and the Americans, they love to trade you. They'll shuffle you out as soon as possible. They'll make you get out of town just to save a bit of money, just to bring in a couple other assets. Well, in this case, Steven Adams, he's the powerful figure because he is a free agent. Now, he's not in full control because he needs an offer. And I think there will be a few offers. But do you want him to stay at Houston Rockets? Do you want him to maybe go to the Golden State Warriors? Do you want him to, probably won't happen, but maybe return to the Oklahoma City Thunder? What is your favorite Steven Adams free agency destination?
I've thought about this a bit, and I've wondered, where would it be cool to see him play? Because the Lakers fans are pretty keen on him at the moment, it seems, and JJ Redick is a former teammate of his, and it's like, yeah, it would be fun to see him playing with LeBron and Luka, but I also don't know if that's the best fit, and I also just don't want Steven Adams to have to deal with that much drama, so I don't really like that one. Um, yeah, I thought about thinking Golden State maybe. Yeah, that's an interesting possibility. I think they could genuinely use him. I think there's a lot of teams that could use someone really substantially in that kind of role, that type of player. But the more I think about it, the more I think, well, actually, I think maybe he's just in the best situation where he is at Houston, and that might not mean getting to start games. Well, you don't know exactly what could happen. Um, I also think this is just the most likely place for him to stay because the way that there's a million different little angles with the NBA salary caps, I don't know how anyone ever pretends to understand how it works. But um, from what I gather, the Rockets have the full what they call the bird rights for Steven Adams. So that means they can offer above the salary cap to keep him, whereas other teams obviously cannot. They can only offer him as much money as they have available to offer him. There are sort of mid-level exceptions and things like that. He might be demanding a bit more than a mid-level exception which is about 10 million a year. Maybe not, give or take. And he also is the kind of dude who might just take a little bit less for a better fit if there's a spot that he really believes in. But I kind of think the spot that he would really believe in would be the one that he's in right now. And I suspect he'll probably feel a bit loyal to the Rockets as well after how badly the Grizzlies managed his knee injury and then how well the Rockets managed his knee injury sort of recovery on the other side of that afterwards. I think he will appreciate that. I think Ime Udoka is the type of coach he would love playing for. And it's just a matter of Well, frankly, I think it's just a matter of time until that probably gets done. I think he will stay with the Rockets, and I think that's probably the best spot for him. The question mark then becomes, will the Rockets just keep the same team as last year, or are they going to fall into that trap, which is sometimes a good thing, often a bad thing, of just like, let's see if we can, now that we've got this team full of exciting young players, let's see if we can trade them all away to get an aging superstar. We'll see how that goes. Um, but it depends on the player because Giannis Antetokounmpo might be available, or maybe they decide Kevin Durant and a bunch of draft picks and Jalen Green or something might be the thing that can take them to the next level into contention. I don't know. Like the Rockets have a few. When you got a team that young and you got a lot of players under control with their own contracts, and you've got draft picks in the future, you got the number 10 pick in this upcoming draft, you do have a lot of flexibility. So they're going to be included in those talks, whether they want to be in them or not. But I think stage one of the offseason for the Rockets will be try and just re-sign Steven Adams, because that seems like the simplest one to do. The GM's already on board as saying he wants to do that, and that he thinks that, or that he believes that Adams is keen to stay. So I've thought about the fairy tale prospects of what other teams might there be where he could go and do something special. But the more I think about it, the more I think, well, I think he's in a good spot where he is. And I think he knows he's in a good spot where he is. And I think the Rockets know that they've got a good thing there with Steven Adams, and I expect that's probably going to get sorted soon.
I am trying to find his salary.
It was about
how much money is Steven Adams making?
Year, I think.
There we go.
Something between 10 and 20, definitely.
12,600,000 USD. That is a slight drop on. He was at the Grizzlies, he was on 17 mil. And then obviously when he signed that max contract, he was early 20s going up to late 20s, almost 30 million. But I don't know if he's going to get more money, and I think that's going to be an interesting aspect of this, is the Houston Rockets might not need to pay 20 million to keep Steven Adams. Of course, the salary cap goes up. There's that magical force that I don't understand at all called inflation. So that might drive the price up as well. But he was only on 12 million this season, and he's the type of player, he's the type of figure that I think is a wise investment for 15 million, 16, maybe 17 million a season, given how he rebounded from his injury and the status that he has at the Houston Rockets as well. But of course, it's the NBA, it's America, so they might just kick him out and not want him back, which does not seem to be the case for the Indian Panthers. Shout out to the Indian Panthers, the funniest sporting organization of my lifetime. Again, I think they're in the Ardie Savea territory. That's the in my lifetime territory. There's nothing else. There's no other correlation connection between the Indian Panthers and Ardie Savea. We do have a pretty hilarious update about the Indian Panthers, where the players they recruited, let me get the technical term here, the South Asian players recruited by the Indian Panthers, most of whom were probably Indian, they have gone back to India. So the Indians in the Indian Panthers team, who, respect to them, weren't getting paid, they've gone back to India.
And only 3 out of 10 of them ever turned up in the first place.
They have gone back to India. But on the same day, this is, again, per the Sal's NBL, the pizza NBL. Which, when I think about it, probably the most expensive pizza you can get. And they're clearly trying to copy a style of pizza where it's like a $1 a slice type of pizza, but they've gone for the most expensive pizza. So that's a little bit confusing in itself. But the pizza NBL, they have made the bold decision after the Indians on the Indian Panthers return to India to postpone the next Indian Panthers game. Big kahunas there from the NBL. Let me give the official announcement. Following a meeting of the league's commission on Monday, the 19th of May, the Pizza NBL confirms that tomorrow's game between the Fire and the Indian Panthers has been postponed, while matters relating to the participation of the Panthers are being resolved. The league understands this is disappointing, and the patience. That we appreciate the patience. Well, you need some more patience because they've just been postponed.
Could have used less patience from the Pizza NBL and just accepted what everyone else has already accepted, including the players from the Indian Panthers, where their 3 Indians have gone back to India. The only 3 of the 10 that turned up have already left. That doesn't sound like that's a team that's ever going to play another game. And Alex Robinson already left like a month ago to go play for the Nelson Giants, who are good now apparently. So yeah, that's worked out for him. But also I noticed Jalen Durand as well, who was their best local player, who's just, a veteran who popped up and started shooting the lights out from 3-pointers for the Panthers. He's managed to get himself a gig at Taranaki as well. So it's not just the Indian players who have left, everyone seems to be leaving. That team's not playing another game. I don't know why we're still postponing games. Like, just, cut the cord already, right? Press the button, press the eject button.
It's very innovative from the Pizza NBL to keep postponing a team. Like, if you just keep postponing it, is that just like constant innovation instead of like just kicking them out of the competition? And I think we talked about kicking them out of the competition like 2 weeks ago when it was all kicking off and it was completely viable that they should no longer be in the competition. Here we are 2 weeks later, and the most innovative solution to this problem is to postpone the next game, even though the team doesn't have any players and they don't have players to not pay. So shout out to the Panthers of India. They're not even the Pan Panthers. They're not the home brand Panthers. They're just shit Panthers, to be honest. But shout out to the Canterbury Rams because there's nothing shit about them. Top of the league, 9-2, ahead of the Wellington Saints, who are 9-3. I did watch the Canterbury Rams play at home, and that was a good win over the Tuatara. That was one of the games I watched. And I was watching them like defend their connectivity, the connection on defensively. They're all engaged, a fun, gritty team, but they got the skill. I was like, wait, so how many Breakers players are in this team? And then I go to the Breakers website in this new innovative era of the New Zealand Breakers, and they've got some good stories. They signed Taylor Britt, who's obviously a key figure at the back-to-back NBL champion Canterbury Rams. And then I see the Breakers, they have a list of their players who are competing in the NBL because we're in this new world where the Breakers have players from New Zealand in their squad. What a time to be alive. And so the Canterbury Rams, top of the league with Taylor Britt, Matt Starling, and Kaya Isaac on their team. My question to you, though, is do you have where's Walter Brown at for Australian NBL gigs? And is there any other development players that aren't listed here? Very good announcement from the Breakers about their players in the NBL. But are there any development players on the Breakers who are in that Canterbury Rams team? Because I love the Canterbury Rams. I've loved them for the last 2 seasons, winning the championships, and I love watching them right now. So can you just help me map out this Canterbury Rams roster? We're specifically connected to the Breakers, but also Walter Brown, because you do love your mate, Wally Brown.
I do, and Judge Flavel seems to love him as well because he's had him around those Tall Black squads. But I don't think Mika Vakona loves him as much as we do because he has released him from as GM of the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. He has released Walter Brown. He'd done 2 years as a as a development player there. This year was supposed to be going up to a full contract, but that's often the case where that there's a common what do you call it? A common structure of contract is to give them that full roster spot at the end, but then often those players don't actually what I was going to say, they don't actually survive to see it. They survive, they just don't play, and they just don't get to play on those contracts. They often get released at that point, and that's unfortunately happened to Walter Brown. So he currently is a free agent from the Australian stuff, but is playing pretty well. He had a very good game in that one you're talking about against the Tuatara, which was like they had a solid lead in the fourth quarter, and the Tuatara kept chipping away and closing it up. And then for a while there, it looked like the Rams couldn't score a bucket, but then the Tuatara just also couldn't score enough to get over that to get over the hump there. It was pretty excellent defensive stuff there. So that is why the Rams are back-to-back champs. Kyer Isaac is one of the development players for the Breakers. Max Starling was on a development player spot, but they moved him up last season. Carlin Davidson's obviously moved up this season, was last year a development player. Now he's a full roster spot. Alex McNaught's still there on a DP role, I believe, and that might be it. I think that's it, because Carlin Davidson's been upgraded. So there's actually they've finished their roster as far as local full contract players. They still have to sign their imports, but there is room for one or two more DPs. So there's a couple, there should be some good young players hanging around. There are plenty of good young players hanging around in the NBL. Should be a few of them maybe who aren't going to college or back from college or whatever. Maybe iron up a spot at the Breakers now that the Breakers care about Kiwi basketball again.
Signing the young players is a bit tricky because a lot of fantastic basketballers from Aotearoa do go overseas before returning to the NBL. That's usually the pattern that we see. And there's a combination. So I mentioned the Nelson Giants and Hayden Jones, son of Phil Jones, part of the coaching staff there at the Nelson Giants. Hayden Jones, obviously, Nelson Giants 2 away wins in the last round. Hayden Jones is awesome. That dude's crazy. But again, but, what am I going to use? But he's not unique, and he is very similar to a lot of these other young basketballers that we have coming up in Aotearoa. Like, we've talked a lot about Jackson Ball. I don't see a lot of difference between Jackson Ball and Hayden Jones. They're both massive. They both handle the ball. They both get busy going to the hoop. They can shoot. They're long defenders. So that's cool. I love seeing that in the NBL. But then we've also got this under-19 New Zealand basketball team for the under-19 World Cup that you listed in our newsletter yesterday. There's heaps of these dudes. And this is a fantastic time for Aotearoa basketball because, there's no shortage of long, talented, freaky basketball players from Aotearoa, and most of them are named in this New Zealand Under-19 World Cup squad.
Yeah, so this Under-19 World Cup squad might have been the most hotly contested junior basketball team that's ever been selected, because last year we had a Under-17 World Cup side that made the semi-finals, finished fourth. That had players like Jackson Ball, Lachlan Crate, Oscar Goodman, Hayden Jones, Troy Plumley. They're all in this Under-19 World Cup team. Last year also had an Under-18 Asia Cup, so for players a year older than those guys, that squad had Will Blight, Julius Halaifanua, Carter Hotboy, Tom Isaac, Kahurangi Treacher. They're all in this squad. Plus Xander Masters and Josh Wiley have worked their way in there. So those are your 12 players going to the World Cup. It's late June, early July. So that'll be after the Pizza NBL season. I like the Pizza NBL much more than throwing out the actual name sponsor. They're not paying us. So I think we might have to roll with that. And yeah, that is a stacked lineup. And every one of those players has played NBL this season, except for Goodman and Halaifanua. because they're so good, they've already gone over to America. I think Troy Plumley has only played a little bit for Wellington because he's gone over as well. Like he's since left to get a head start on his American stuff. 8 of those 12 have already committed to USA colleges, and some of those are pretty big schools too. And within that, that includes, I like your comparison between Jackson Ball and Hayden Jones too, because this works for this reason as well. They're both going to Wisconsin. And Wisconsin, on their coaching staff, I almost said coaching roster, I don't think that quite works, coaching staff, is a fellow by the name of Kirk Penny. So Tall Blacks legend, one of the few New Zealanders to ever play NBA, will get to have like a hands-on developmental approach with Jackson Ball and Hayden Jones. Of course, Phil Jones, Kirk Penny, teammates, 2002 Tall Blacks. So those two go back a long way. That's all very, very exciting stuff. And when I say the two, Goodman and Halafanoa not playing in that, not playing in the only two who haven't played NBL minutes this season, well, that's because they're the two best. Like those are the two shining lights of New Zealand basketball at the moment. Goodman at that under 17 World Cup, he was in the All-Star 5. Halafanoa, I don't think actually played he was in the squad, but he didn't actually play in the under 18 Asia Cup. That's because he was busy doing whatever his NBA Global Academy stuff was, which Goodman was also involved with. Who from that squad has already played for the Tall Blacks? Let's have a look. Jackson Ball, he has. Oscar Goodman, Julius Halafanoa, they have. They were in the most recent squad. Carter Hopeway has. Tama Isaac has. Hayden Jones has. That's half your under-19 squad have already played senior basketball. And admittedly, like, the Tall Blacks have been trying to get these guys a bit of experience. Like they're not necessarily there on merits. It was sort of like let's give the last spot on the roster to a developmental player. But the reason they're carving out space for those guys is because these young guys are so good that this is just going to boost them up some more. And when I say they've all played, what did I say? 10 out of 12 have played NBL this season. 7 of those 10 have played at least 100 minutes. 5 of those 10 have played at least 200 minutes. And Carter Hopeway has played 326 minutes. Jackson Ball has played 437 minutes. So these aren't small, insignificant contributions either. Like some of these guys are serious role players, serious rotation options, starters even in 1 or 2 cases. For teams that are going pretty well too, like Tom Isaac playing for the Canterbury Rams. There you go, right? And this is, I started this little segment saying this might have been the most hotly contested squad ever picked. Well, now we have that squad, and we can see like this is the cream of the crop right here. And the crazy thing is, like, you don't often always necessarily get the you don't necessarily know who these players are before they find their way into these squads ordinarily. But a lot of these guys are already household names for basketball fans in this country. So this is, I'm gonna stick a flag on this one and say this is definitely a tournament that I'm going to be paying a fair bit of attention to, because this is stacked. Like this is a squad that could do something. Well, half of them already did do something special at the under 17 World Cup last year. And they could very well do something special at the under-19 World Cup this year as well.
Speaking of fabulous young talent, sporting excellence, Tanner Stowers-Smith made his debut for the Warriors at the, the 4th home of the Warriors, I think. We got Mount Smart, and then you got Christchurch. Then I got to big up the Hamilton Stadium, because remember that preseason game against the Storm in Hamilton, that crowd, jam-packed, bigger than any Super Rugby crowd in Hamilton this year. And the Chiefs are awesome. Like, the Chiefs are good, but they still had a bigger crowd there. So that's the 3rd home. I think Suncorp or Gold Coast, they're kind of the 4th home, I'd say. Just a little side note there. But what was my point? Stowers-Smith. He made his debut, and we'll get into a whole lot more Warriors stuff, but to start us off here, well, to continue from the youngster theme of the basketball section, Stowers-Smith is the latest youngster to come through the Warriors pipeline, and they had Vaimonga, Laban, and Halasima in the team that defeated the Dolphins. Ali Leotawa is currently out injured. Eddie Iramia was 18th man. So that's just a little snapshot of the young talent at the Warriors. There's also yet to debut. Of course, we've seen Sam Healy make his debut, having joined from the Sharks for this season. And there's a whole bunch more youngsters in New South Wales Cup. This is in order of NRL debut possibilities. Eddie Iramia Toiava's next in line. I think he's going to be very useful as a versatile bench player for the Warriors. But we got Dayon Amatuanai on the wing. I think he is a chance, depending on the outside back availability at some point this year. Helis Fatialofa, Toby Crosby, Jason Salalilo, and Makai Tafua, and Luke Hansen. All those dudes are playing in the New South Wales Cup team that is currently 9-1. Tanner Stowers-Smith, he's 36 games, I believe. 21, and he's played 43 games of New South Wales Cup. In this period, the two Andes era, which is all of Stowers-Smith's career at the Warriors, that New South Wales Cup team has been a top 4 team. And there was an interesting note, like Stowers-Smith, he played under 19s and then New South Wales Cup in 2023. So that, like, these are little glimpses of the quality of talent that the Warriors have, because Stowers-Smith, he has played a total of 1 Jersey Flegg Cup game in his life. So he went straight from under 19s to New South Wales Cup, and he's played 1 game of under 21s. And then he made his debut for the Warriors against the Dolphins. But it's a key factor. Like, yes, the New South Wales Cup team's good. They've always had pretty solid veterans. Let me see if I can remember a few. Like Ben Farr was an Aussie who came over for the first 2 years. They had Paul Roach. They've had Patarika Vaivai. James Gavey was there for a period. Maya Sands was a really solid veteran for that team. They've all left. And the team keeps winning. Which is, you still got Keilani going. You've got Tanner Boyd, Tamara Martin, those type of characters. Moala Graham-Telfer's been a constant presence in that team for every year. But this New South Wales Cup team has been a top 4 team while producing young players for the NRL team. And Stowers-Smith is the latest. I think he's had the biggest run in New South Wales Cup because he's played 43 games, and Eddie Iramia is 20 years old, and he's already played 36 games in New South Wales Cup. Now, Stowers-Smith is also from Christchurch, and we've been big on the Christchurch Rugby League takeover for a long time. Christchurch has always had a lot of rugby league talent. Obviously, everyone knows the story of Stowers-Smith. His great-granddad or his granddad played for the Kiwis. Christchurch has always had a really good rugby league setup. It was just kind of brushed aside by the let's go with Canterbury Super Rugby team dynasty, because I don't want to upset anyone, because we actually care. And we're not very religious. So let's just settle with the Canterbury Super Rugby team. Then you had, so the way I think about it in my head, like, of course, there's always been players from Canterbury playing for the Kiwis, playing in the NRL. But there was, the way I think about it, having started covering rugby league in depth, There was the kind of Jermaine Sako Fa'amanu Brown period. And that era, to me, like maybe just under 10 years, probably more like 7 or 8 years, that era ended with Jordan Ricky leaving Canterbury to go to the Broncos. Because after that, then we get into St. Thomas of Canterbury being back-to-back National Secondary Schools champions, which is the start of a new era. But those dudes are under 17. Those dudes are schoolboys. And to be honest, Stowers-Smith didn't go to St. Thomas of Canterbury. But Stowers-Smith is the leader in terms of making his NRL debut of this new era of Canterbury Rugby League talent. It's an era where we have the Bulldogs partnership with Canterbury Rugby League, which is actually interesting because Stowers-Smith was first signed to the Bulldogs. He didn't play for the Bulldogs in any official capacity, but he was first signed to the Bulldogs before the Bulldogs announced their partnership with Canterbury Rugby League. More recently, we've had the Roosters. They've set up a South Island Academy with Rolleston College. We've got young wahine from Aotearoa like Isabella Waterman has signed a deal with the Raiders. She's moved from the Knights to the Raiders in NRLW. There's Manisha Seebeck, who's a Hornby junior who is playing in the Roosters under-19 team. All of that, like if you didn't already know, the fact that the Bulldogs and the Roosters have a presence in Christchurch should tell you all you need to know. The fact that St. Thomas of Canterbury are back-to-back National Secondary Schools champions should tell you all you need to know. Now, what did I say a few weeks ago? The Warriors, they are under-17 Harold Matthews Cup champions back-to-back. And the MVPs in both years are from Christchurch, Lennox Tuiloma, Bishop Neil. And it's, again, we're getting into this undeniable territory when you consider Tuiloma, Neil, both from St. Thomas of Canterbury. So, like, that talent is so good that they are, two players from there, are key figures in St. Thomas of Canterbury being national champions and the Warriors being under-17 champions in the Harold Matthews Cup. This is happening below Stowers-Smith. So this is why the Stowers-Smith debut is very interesting, because he is the leader of this next wave. A next wave that has Felix Fa'atili and Richie Tupuaile from Hornby in the Sharks system. We've got Takayo Cranwell, Xavier Lynch, Ezekiel Whangaiti in the Knights system. We got KC Newton Whare and Josiah Ekehard Nelly in the Storm system. We got Oliver Lowry and Ezekiel Polo in the Sea Eagles system. Jackson Stewart with the Roosters. And of course, the Bulldogs have their partnership with Canterbury Rugby League. So they've got Sasaya Alatini, Bronson Rubin, Sheldon Hayward, Genesis Arkham Sherlock, and Evander Tafua. Let alone the Warriors, because we know the Warriors, they have Micaiah Tafua. Jason Salolilo, they are the next up players in the Warriors system behind Stowers-Smith. Rico Lamali played under-19s for the Warriors. Mayhana Paulings just joined the Titans, but he was playing SG ball for the Warriors earlier this year. Micah Sulla, Isaiah Savea, Bishop Neal, Caleb Fidel, Kenny Luffy Tuanai, Cristiano Elia, Dougal Grant, Amasio Tiatia. They've been all in that under-17, under-19 mix from the Warriors, for the Warriors from Christchurch. So all of that's happening. Like that is undeniable that the rugby league talent from Christchurch and the wider Canterbury region is getting crazy. And Stowers-Smith is the leader of that. And Stowers-Smith's a very interesting leader because he fits right into this Warriors forward pack. He's a grizzly worker type of middle forward. He just goes through the work. It was a tough debut for him because he came on earlier than expected, I believe, because Vaimonga had a head HIA check. So Stowers-Smith came on for him. Stowers-Smith had some really good runs. He was doing his job. I think it was in the second half where he conceded a few penalties. And that's all right. Because once you get caught in the fatigue cycle of an NRL game, and they were playing a very tough, fast, grisly rugby league game because that's what the Dolphins wanted to do as well. If you're in debut, it's going to be, you're going to be buggered. And those penalties, I believe, were penalties where it was just fatigue based, but he did his job. And he is more like James Fisher-Harrison, Mitchell Barnett than Leka Halasima or Dimitri Vaimonga. Laban is an athletic freak, right? Like he's tall, he's mobile, so he's got X factor. Vaimonga, footwork, power, skill. Leka Halasima is a freakazoid. Stowers-Smith is just a worker, but he's a very, very good worker. And that's a fantastic player to have as the leader of this new Christchurch Wave, Canterbury Rugby League wave. And it's a useful player to have in the Warriors forward pack right now. A, because Fisher-Harris is suspended. And that was, I mean, if the Warriors had lost that game with Fisher-Harris in the sin bin, that would have been a bit of a bummer to do a shoulder charge with like late in the game and invite the Dolphins back into the game. But I also loved the shoulder charge. Like that was just cool. Like it wasn't cool in terms of him using a brutal act in the vicinity of someone's head. That's not cool. But the cool thing is, of this unhinged moment of brutality, the Warriors intimidate. And the middle forward trio of Fisher-Harris, Mitchell Barnett, Aaron Clark it's awesome. And I think it's the best middle forward trio that I've seen for the Warriors. But they are also ridiculously intimidating. They're scary. And I've kind of broken it down. I've got this trio breakdown. One of those trios is the middle forward trio. Not only are they brutal, skillful, tough buggers, powerful, they always get the job done, but they lead the wrestling of the Warriors. And I thought about it during the 2023 season. I'm thinking about it again. I think the Warriors are one of the best wrestling teams in the NRL. And obviously that is a link to Kai Kara-France being their wrestling coach, their grappling coach. And Kai Kara-France has a fight coming up against Pantoja. So if you're a Warriors fan, you'll be bigging up in Kai Kara-France for that wrestling ability. He's not a known wrestler in the UFC, but he's the wrestling coach for the Warriors, which is an interesting mix. We are now dealing with a Warriors team that is one of the best at controlling the ruck. And I think a lot of it is down to Fisher-Harris. Like that is one of Fisher-Harris's skills. Because he did that for the Panthers, winning multiple championships. He controlled the middle of the field. And somehow the Warriors are one of the best wrestling teams, and they concede the fewest penalties in the NRL. So they are so good at wrestling, they don't get penalized for their wrestling. What a beautiful time to be a Warriors fan. Part of that involves this vibe where calls are going the Warriors' way. So the Warriors, because everyone likes to complain about wrestling, right? Like wrestling isn't something to be celebrated. Wrestling is a bad thing of rugby league when instead it's just a fact of rugby league. It's a fact of rugby union. It's a fact of any contact sport is how you control that collision, that contact. And like 10 years ago, or more, 15 years ago, when the Storm were the wrestling gurus, you're like, one day the Warriors will be one of the best wrestling teams in the NRL. No one would believe you. And they concede the fewest penalties. That starts with the middle forward trio. But you're also seeing it in the youngsters, because the youngsters have come through this Warriors system. They've had 3 summers training their wrestling. So that now they are just as equipped as any Australian team in that fundamental of rugby league. The other trios, Nickel Clockstar, Wahine Zelezniak, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Wahine Zelezniak wasn't really a running factor against the Dolphins. Tuivasa-Sheck had over 20 runs, 200 meters. Nickel Clockstar, excellent as always. Wahine Zelezniak didn't really do the running oomph that he always does, so it'll be interesting to see how that develops. But if you're going Nickel Clockstar, Tuivasa-Sheck, Wahine Zelezniak, that is an excellent outside back, carting the ball up. Back 3. I don't know how people think Nickel Clockstar is not that good. As I said last week, he always makes meters. He doesn't look powerful. He's incredibly powerful. But we've also got this idea that the Warriors are a good defensive team. Good defensive teams are driven by their fullback, because the fullback is telling players where to go. The fullback is counting numbers, assessing the balance of those numbers, communicating that assessment in a second. And Nickel Clockstar's doing all of that. Then you get to the goal line, Nickel Clockstar's dragging someone to put him over there. He's literally pushing them to this way, pushing them that way, and he is in the defensive line making a important defensive move. You'll see this with Clint Gutherson. Shout out to the Dragons. Good win over the Broncos. I was cheering for the Dragons because I do love the Broncos drama. Gutherson does this as well. All the good fullbacks do it. You're in the defensive line, and then when the ball moves, you tuck in behind the defensive line. But you can't tuck in behind the defensive line too early, because then they pass back or they cut back, and there's the hole in the defensive line where the fullback was. So you need to time all that perfectly. There's a lot of defensive work that Nickel Clockstar does, as well as, let me see where he's at for post-contact meters. I'm pretty sure he is first or second for Warriors post-contact meters. He's third. But he's only played the 9 games, whereas Barnett and Clark have played the 10 games. So he's doing that. He's doing all the run meters. 2 runs a set. 9 meters per run. 10 meters per run. And you've got the ruck control, but you also have the fullback leading the defensive organization. What more do you want from your fullback, you know? Yeah, he's not fast. Okay. But the team's good. Okay, he doesn't really pass like Kalen Ponga. The team's good. So he's doing his job in a good team. The other trio that I've got is the Wade Egan, Harris Tavita, Luke Metcalf trio. Wade Egan, still first for dummy half runs. That seems useful. And he was at the 10-meter per run mark against the Dolphins. He had 5 runs for 58 meters, 11.6 meters per run. From dummy half, 4 runs for 44 meters, 11 meters per run. You add in big minutes, best passing dummy half, making his tackles. He's a fantastic dummy half. And he leads the whole NRL for dummy half runs. And if you went into his efficiency running from dummy half, given that he averages 10 meters per dummy half run nearly every game, I reckon he probably averages 10 meters per run from dummy half this season. The best thing about the halves for me is the balance. I've talked about it for the kicking, but I also love this stat, this fact. Luke Metcalf, 7 tries, 4 try assists. Chanel Harris-Tavita, 3 tries, 8 try assists. So Metcalf has scored more tries, but he's also got a few try assists. Harris-Tavita has a few tries, but he's got more try assists. I think Metcalf must be the leading try scorer, and Harris-Tavita is probably the leading try assister. Shall we try and confirm that? I think we shall. Harris-Tavita, 8 try assists. He is first for the Warriors because Metcalf is second on 4. Tries. Luke Metcalf has the most tries. So one of your halves is your leading try scorer. The other half is your leading try assister. What more do you want? It's just good rugby league facts. Then we get into the youngsters. And it was an interesting game against the Dolphins because we had less Vaimonga. He only played 15 minutes or so. Stowers-Smith played more minutes than Vaimonga, and he played the most minutes of the bench players, which shows you how Andrew Webster views Stowers-Smith. It's not just like you're going to go debut, you're going to play 10 minutes, that's it, because we don't really want you, but we'll use you. No. You're going to make your debut, you're going to do your job, and we're going to have confidence in you to keep doing your job. Halasima has now played 3 games in a row of 80 minutes, and they are the 3 wins in a row in Australia. To me, and again, repeat this over and over again, these young players just doing their job, to me, is more impressive than Halasima making a line break to score a try. And if Halasima is playing 80 minutes, where he has to make 20 tackles, where all his runs are to make meters, to run into 3 dudes, he's not going to have the moments right now. But that's all good because he's learning how to play 80 minutes of tough, ruthless NRL footy. It is no coincidence that Halasima's line breaks, his magical moments, his Metcalf moments, have come late in games when he's coming off the bench. But Halasima is now playing 80 minutes. I think the best Warriors team, Kurt Capewell is edge forward, Halasima comes off the bench. But in this portion of the season, we are seeing the X-factor player for the Warriors just do his job. 80 minutes. Just do your job. Get through your work. Fit into the defensive structure. Fit into the attacking structure. because there is a system there. Nickel Clockstar takes a run. Tuivasa-Sheck takes a run. Waitene-Zelezniak takes a run. Nickel Clockstar takes another run. Aaron Clark takes a run. Halasima is going to take a run every second or third set of 6 that the Warriors have. And he needs to be comfortable doing that because he's there to play 80 minutes. And he's doing it well. But you still kind of sense, given the standard he's set for highlight plays, everyone judges him on those highlights. Where it's more impressive for me that he's just churning out 80 minutes for 3 wins in a row in Australia. The other thing I was watching was Jacob Laban. And I think a lot of people were overlooking Ali Leotawa just settling into a centre role consistently as a youngster earlier in the season. I think a lot of people are overlooking the fact that Jacob Laban is finishing games. So he's playing 24, 25, 26, 27 minutes at the end of games. Primarily on the right edge. He does seem to spend a little bit of time in the middle, and he looks good in the middle doing his job there, but most of his minutes are at the right edge position. And I find it interesting that Webster he has confidence in him to finish the game because all those games have been close. I think he missed the Cowboys game, but he's on the field in high pressure NRL moments, and Webster loves it. He's putting him there. The Dolphins tries, though, they did come from Laban's spacing, where the gap between Laban and Metcalf was too big. So that was like a little defensive flaw that the Warriors had against the Dolphins. But fair play, one of those tries was when they were in the sin bin deficit. And that kind of thing can happen if you're conceding fast play the balls, which the Warriors do not do much of because they control the ruck. So there's always things to work on. There's things to improve. But Laban is finishing the games as an edge forward. And to me, that is very useful for a young player. Like, sure, Halasima playing 80 minutes is better. But Laban didn't start the season in the team. He has earned his selection on the bench. Injuries, suspensions fall your way, but Webster is still giving Laban that opportunity to finish games. And I think that is very impressive for a player who they're all high pedigree youngsters. They've all risen quickly through the Warriors system. Laban's had as much hype as any of the others. And again, he's just doing his job, but he's doing his job in positions that really, really matter. Because the Warriors are finishing games with Halasima on one edge and Laban on the other edge. Where the margin is 2 points, 4 points. Nail-biting finishes, stressful finishes, but the youngsters are getting that opportunity to learn how to win those games.
And they are winning those games because I think I can't remember what the exact stat is. Something like 6 of their 8 wins have been by like 1 try or less, or 8 points or less, or something like that. Like there's a lot of close games in these Warriors ones, and they're winning all of them. They're winning all of their close games because the 2 games they didn't win, they got thrashed in, right? It's Raiders and Storm. Whenever they're in these close contests, they're coming out on top. And that's with this really, really big license, a whole lot of faith being given to a lot of young players within that. It's the Laban finishing games, Stowers-Smith on debut playing big minutes off the bench. Halasima being given the 80 minutes in a row. What else did you say? Leotawa, top 17 player, or top 13 player from day one of the season. Vaimonga's played pretty much every game as well. That's a lot. there's probably more you could list as well. I don't know. You certainly mentioned some guys as well earlier that their turns are coming up in the future that haven't quite come around yet. Like that's a lot of trust being put in a lot of young players as well. It's not one or two guys. That's like five significant roles. Four significant roles in this one game and spread it out in terms of other players who have featured. I mean, it's similar to the stuff where we're talking about with the basketball guys, like the amount of things these guys have achieved in their careers already, and the sort of opportunities that are coming to them because of that. I mean, this is all tied into, you said this as well. This is all tied into the New South Wales Cup team being successful, winning team over the last couple seasons as well, with these same players playing big roles. Like this is just, I don't know. This is exactly. This feels like the way that development clubs are meant to operate, right? It's like the perfect scenario. And they've got the first team with a few veterans and good, reliable players that set the tone and they're the stars and whatever. But you've also got young players coming into a winning environment, but adding to that winning environment, not just hanging around and learning in the background, hiding in the shadows, picking up a few tips where they can and plotting for a couple years' time when they're ready. They're coming straight in and being impactful from day one.
You can look at the ladder and see that the Warriors are second with a points difference of 5.
It is a funny thing to do, to look at that ladder and see that.
Oh, it's hilarious. Lol. What is more impressive? What is more important? That the Warriors are second in the NRL with a points difference of 5, or the Warriors are 17-3 in the NRL and New South Wales Cup this season? And if we combine 3 seasons in the 2 grades, the Warriors are top 4 in 5 of those 6 seasons combined. So you can say, oh, the points differential, they suck because, like, how are they good? They don't. The points differential is 1, it's 5, it's 3, whatever. Who cares? They're 17-3 in the NRL and New South Wales Cup this season. You combine NRL and New South Wales Cup 6 seasons total of the 2 Andes era. The Warriors as an organization are top 4 in 5 of those 6 seasons. One last thing as I drip feed NRLW information ahead of the season, there was a flurry of late signings after I published my preview. So we had to update the preview, but it does encapsulate the state of NRLW and NRL wahine as I label it. So the Bulldogs signed 3 players. Monica Tangawai. She is a former Black Fern from Wellington. And they also signed Samina Lokatui, who's a Mangere East junior, has been in their under-19 team, and Lanaya Mahakitau Monshel, who's also from their under-19 team, and they are both signed on development contracts. Lanaya Mahakitau Monshel was previously known as Lanaya Daniel, and she is the sister of Shaquila Mahakitau Monshel, who's in the top 24 for the Bulldogs. They are both the nieces of Shanice Monshel, who's also in the top 24. I think they're from Auckland. They went to Waitakere College, but they also had a stint a couple years with St. Peter's, Cambridge in the Waikato. So the Bulldogs signed 3 players from Aotearoa. The Broncos signed 2 players. There's Kerry Johnson, who is from Northland. I think she's from Kaikoui. And Azalea Maka, who is from the Bay of Plenty. They are both from rugby union. So, what am I doing here? Kerry Johnson was part of the Blues via Northland, and Maka was playing for the Chiefs team, the Manawa, this last Super Rugby season. And then, of course, we had Isabella Waterman moving from the Knights to the Raiders. Unfortunately for the Raiders, Claudia Finau has suffered a season-ending injury. Younger sister of Tatiana Finau, they're from Mount Albert. And Claudia was due to move up from a development contract to a top 24 contract and play for the Raiders this season. Before I get into my factoid, shout out to the Bulldogs. Bulldogs love Aotearoa. And the Bulldogs have the most players from Aotearoa aside from the Warriors. I think I've counted 11 of the top 24 for the Bulldogs are from Aotearoa or represent the Kiwi Ferns. The beautiful thing about the Bulldogs is that most of these players, including their development players, were recruited from New Zealand before the Bulldogs had an NRLW team. That applies to the Finau sisters because they were initially recruited by the Bulldogs and then joined the Raiders together. The Taueniai sisters were recruited by the Bulldogs, and then Alexis made her debut for the Dragons before returning to the Bulldogs, and now Trinity Taueniai is in the Dragons top 24, and Soraya Palepale Mangadis Jr., she has a development contract with the Dragons after being recruited by the Bulldogs. So the Bulldogs are the most active NRLW team in recruiting from New Zealand. They have the most, and then it's followed by the Raiders and then the Broncos as far as numbers of NRL wahine. My factoid, though, is so that the Bulldogs signed 3 players in this little announcement roundup that I've got. The Raiders signed 1, the Broncos signed 2. There's 6 players there. 5 of the 6 played Super Rugby Aupiki or Wharapama Cup. That is the norm. That is status quo. Half, if not most, of the NRL wahine contingent for Australian teams and the Warriors played Super Rugby Aupiki, Wharapama Cup, Black Ferns Sevens, or Black Ferns. And I still believe that the NRLW growth is going to have a heavy impact on women's rugby union in Aotearoa. We've already seen it. We will continue to see it. And at some point, this will smash rugby union in the face. They're still pretending like it's not a big issue. No one's really talking about it. But as Women's Rugby League grows, as the Warriors team takes over Women's Rugby League and Union in New Zealand, as all these other NRLW teams recruit from Aotearoa, this will smash rugby union in the face. Boom. Let's get a bit of football. Elijah just doesn't really smash goals in your face. There's a bit more finesse to it. He scored another banger, and I think that might have been my favorite Elijah Just goal of this recent phase, because the way he moved into his right and then opens up his left to get it inside the left post, and I'm literally trying to open up my left boot and swing it into the corner as I'm sitting here. What a banger from Elijah Just. Another banger. All he does is score bangers, finesse bangers, bombadil bangers. Marko Stamenic, what does he do?
He wins trophies.
That's what he
Wherever
does.
He goes.
And Chris Wood, he wins the golden flag. but he hasn't won it just yet. There is a close race for the most offsides in the Premier League, and Chris Wood is in a three-way battle to win the Golden Flag. I think that's the most important trophy achievement that Nottingham Forest is chasing right now. But there's another one where they're trying to get into the Champions League or whatever. So what's the story with the Golden Flag? What's the story with Champions League football for Nottingham Forest? Also spin some yarns on Elijah Just and Marko Stamenic, the Uso.
Well, the Golden Flag with Chris Wood. He had one offside on the weekend. Jamie Vardy for Leicester City had no offsides. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin for Everton had no offsides, which means that with one round to go, all three of them are on 27 offsides. So if none of them play, I guess, I don't know, they share the... It's not really a title because no one else pays attention to it, but they should because those are also three good goal scorers. So clearly there's a correlation, particularly with Chris Wood. We've definitely explored that before. Woodsy didn't score this weekend, but Nottingham Forest did win. They won 2-1 against West Ham. Got a little bit slippery there for a moment. He did hit the post with a header in the first half, and could have clinched the game with an assist when he flipped through their fellow Jota near the end, and he didn't score. Had a shot deflected over. So it was a good performance from Woodsy. He was like, a little bit more of a facilitator this time than hovering around trying to score. But that's because Nottingham Forest did the thing that when they're at their best, they do. Scored early, took the lead, and then were able to play from in front where they like to let the other team have the ball, let them come at them, hit them on the counter-attack. And sometimes that means Chris Wood dropping back and winning defensive headers. Other times it means him still hovering around halfway. You clear the ball to Woodsy. He holds it up. Strength of three men there. No one can take it off him as long as his touch is all right. And then he flips it wide to one of the wingers running off him. That's how he set up that Jota chance near the end. They did concede late against West Ham, so it got a little bit frisky there, but they held on for the 2-1 win. Other results weren't great, but Arsenal did beat Newcastle. So what that means is heading into the last round, top 5 gets Champions League. Now that Crystal Palace have pretty sensationally won the FA Cup as well, that helps clear up the European stuff too. So it'll be top 5 gets Champions League, 6th place gets Europa League. Crystal Palace also get Europa League regardless of where they finish. And 7th will be Conference League. And right now Nottingham Forest is 7th, but they're 1 point off 3rd. So it's just one of them like down to the wire things. The Golden Flag will be a photo finish, and the Champions League spots will be a photo finish. Nottingham Forest plays Chelsea in the last round. So if they don't win that game, it doesn't really matter. They're guaranteed European football either way because they can't finish lower than 7th. But we're talking Champions League here. If they don't beat Chelsea, they won't get Champions League. If they do beat Chelsea, they would need either Everton to win or draw against Newcastle, or they would need Aston Villa to win, to lose, or where are we? They would need Manchester United to win or draw against Aston Villa. Or it would be nice if Manchester City drops some points. They actually have 2 games to go because of the FA Cup games. They're playing midweek against Bournemouth and on the weekend against Fulham. I have been wondering, tiny little thought in the back of my head, might we see Matt Dibley-Diaz sneak onto a Fulham bench at some point before the end of the season, since they've got nothing else to play for? Might be a chance to blood a few youngsters. I suspect that won't happen, but who knows? It's not out of the question that he might pop up and score a sensational goal against Manchester City. There's probably a 1 in 10,000 chance of it happening, but that's better than a 0 chance. So there's 3 other teams that they could potentially catch up if they can beat Chelsea in the final round. They are at home in that one, and they did draw away against Chelsea earlier in the season, back in like October. And you know who scored the goal in the 1-1 draw that day? It was Chris Wood against Chelsea, his first ever goal against Chelsea, actually. So it's not over. They're back in with a little bit of a chance after beating West Ham. It's still the outsider thing, but look, if they don't get Champions League, they still get some other European football, and that in itself will be great for Chris Wood, getting a chance to play some of that stuff. It also will be great for Marko Stamenic and Tyler Bindon and their chances of being able to hang around in the top squad, because the more games you play, the bigger squad you need. And they already kind of got found out a little bit in the last month or so, where a lot of players have played a lot of minutes for Forest this season, and those guys are pretty tired right now, and they're battling through it. And it's maybe why they've slipped up a few results lately. I don't think that's a coincidence, as they have not the shallowest squad overall, but the shallowest squad in terms of the players that the coach actually trusts out of all those teams in the top seven, really. There was a little bit of like, one of the British papers had a thing about Nottingham Forest where they said Tyler Bindon's likely to go out on loan to a championship team, but I've read another one that said that no decision's been made whatsoever. What we know is that Tyler Bindon has said this, Marko Stamenic has said this. They'll both report to preseason training. So at least for the first week or so, they'll be with Forest. They'll, I don't know, do their testing and stuff, and they'll have a chance to make an impression and show that they deserve to stick around. Speaking of Stamenic, didn't get on the field in the Greek Cup final. That was unfortunate. They scored early, but then they didn't get a clinching goal till late, so they obviously weren't going to go messing with their midfield while they're trying to hold on to a 1-0 for most of that match. But he was on the bench and he was available, and he got to partake in some celebrations as Olympiacos made it a League and Cup double, just as Cervena Zvezda won a League and Cup double last season with Marko Stamenic, just as FC Copenhagen won a League and Cup double the year before that with Marko Stamenic. 3 League and Cup doubles, 6 trophies, and 3 consecutive seasons in 3 different countries with 3 different clubs. I know no New Zealander has ever done it before at anything like a comparable level to this. I'd be surprised if too many footballers from any heritage have done that. They've achieved the feat that Marko Stamenic just wrapped up, and he's not going to be playing in Greece next year. So I don't know, maybe he can still make it a 4th. Maybe he'll just get crack into that Nottingham Forest team. There we go. FA Cup, Premier League double. That would maybe be like the greatest individual run of trophies in the history of the sport if that happens. Maybe they'll even add a Champions League title to that as well, make it a treble, who knows. But that's what Marko Stamenic has been doing. Anything on that, or you want a bit of Elijah Just as well?
Well, it would be a fantastic individual achievement for Marko Stamenic, but it would also involve Chris Wood, and it may
and
also
probably Tyler Bindon.
Yeah. So that would, to be honest, it would just be an amazing moment for Kiwi football. But finish up on Elijah Just.
Yeah, Elijah Just. He doesn't score simple goals, but they kind of are simple for him, because there's a lot. He scored 6 goals this season for St. Pölten in Austria, and they've all been fantastic goals. Some people, Chris Wood will specialize in he'll score the tap-ins as well. It's a volume game after all. Certainly wouldn't be disappointed if Elijah Just scored a few extra little tap-ins, but that's not his role. He's a winger. He's a creative player. Sometimes he plays through the middle as well for St. Pölten. And he's their 3rd top goal scorer, and he's only played about a third of the minutes this season because he just pops up with these amazing finishes. I don't know if they got XG in the 2nd division of Austrian football, but if they do, I'm pretty sure he's absolutely shattering that. There's the chop and side and curl it into the top corner goals that he's been scoring. Got a couple of those for the All Whites as well in the same time. There was one where he smashed one into the bottom corner across the goal. There was the dribbling sensation one of last week, where it wasn't the commentator, it was the voiceover and the highlights package that I found of it was like, I don't speak, what do they speak in Austrian? I guess they speak German in Austria. So I don't speak German, so I don't know exactly what the commentator was talking about when he was describing the goal, but I definitely heard the words Maradona and England in '86. So he's comparing it to one of the most famous goals ever scored in the sport. I think that's an exaggeration, just quietly, but Elijah Just has maybe been doing that to people in watching him score the goals he's been scoring. He wasn't there for the start of the season. He turned up. St. Pölten got quite good after he turned up. He's had a couple injuries, hovering around like either side of that All Whites World Cup qualification final thing, so he's also missed some time. They have one more game this season, so we'll see if he can add to that. If he scores another goal, he'll be their 2nd top scorer for the season, despite playing such a not a minimal amount, because there have been very impactful minutes when he's been around, but he hasn't played as much as he would like to, but he's played enough to make a pretty heavy impact. What is interesting moving forward about this is he is only on loan at St. Paulston. They have an option to buy, so that is a thing that I expect they will pick up. I think they'll keep him around. He's been good enough that I don't see why you wouldn't. But there is an option that maybe if they don't have the finances or something and then they can't afford to, that maybe that option was there because they were banking on getting promoted and they're probably going to finish third. They've actually won 5 games in a row, so they're finishing really strong. Coincidentally, right as Elijah Justice come back to fitness, they've started winning a bunch of games in a row. So, another little one there. We'll see what the on-off stuff looks like at the end of the season. But he just he keeps scoring these amazing goals, and he was doing it for the All Whites as well at the same time. So he's definitely one of the most enjoyable players to be watching at the moment because I don't know, I pop up in those highlights on like a Sunday morning, Monday morning, and see that name Elijah Just on the scoreboard. I know I'm in for something good.
According to footystats.org, this season, which is in the second league, if I'm reading this correctly, per 90, he's on 0.54 goals scored.
Sounds about right. There's 6 goals in like 1,000 something minutes.
0.64 goal involvements. So there you go.
That's including his assists or two. One assist, 2 assists. I can't remember exactly. But those are massive numbers for someone who's not like those. Actually, those would be massive numbers for a striker. Those are enormous numbers for someone who's not even playing as a striker, who's playing as a creative midfielder.
Beauty. But we got bigger fish to fry here because we got to talk about Auckland FC, the Blue Riders, and their victory away from home against the Melbourne Victory. Let me read your nice and succinct notes in our newsletter to set you up here. They picked a back four formation, getting the best dudes on the park that they could. Max Mata was injured. Neida Moreno is the super sub. They mostly played without the ball, only keeping 40% of possession. But part of that lack of possession was because they countered so fast when they did get it, rather than knocking the ball around to boost up the passing stats. Cough, cough, Wellington Phoenix. Lots of room for Marley Francois in particular when they broke. Didn't do much with it, but was an outlet that could have been fruitful. They targeted set pieces. They defended stoutly and really limited a good attacking Victory side with Alex Paulson not facing a shot on target. In fact, the Melbourne Victory shot map tells an enthralling tale all on its own, which you can't see, but you can see in our newsletter.
Doesn't work on the podcast as well. But yes, it is in the newsletter.
That's a total of 10 shots by the Victory, and 7 of them were blocked, including the only 3 from within the penalty area. All of which just smells like a quintessential, typical Auckland FC performance, but in their biggest game of the season, away from home in Melbourne. I've got 2 kind of zones that I want to focus on. The defense, and I think Jacob Spoonley mentioned in the commentary, like the layers of the defense. Because the strikers work hard, they're going to get busy doing their defensive work. And if you get past them, then you're running into the Verstrada trap. And Verstrada, he's going to push you off the ball. He's going to take the ball from you, and he's going to make a pass. If you get past him, depending on where you are, you're either dealing with Sakai or Franny De Vries, who are excellent defenders on either side of the field. And usually what happens is you get past the wide player, and then you're channeled into the middle where Dan Hall or Zen Peinecker are waiting for you. They're going to take the ball off you. But somehow, if you get past all those players, which I don't think actually happened in this game against the Victory.
Not in this game, no.
if by a miracle you get past those players, you need to get the ball past Alex Paulson, who is still the best goalkeeper in the A-League. To me, he's the best goalkeeper New Zealand's ever produced. He is an absolute freak. Like I was thinking about it with the Warriors. This is due to the salary cap, due to the nature of professional sports. I don't know how long it's going to last where you're just watching these youngsters develop together. So it's a moment to savor because we're watching the Warriors. We're watching Leotawa, Stowers-Smith, Halasima, Laban, Vaimunga. We're watching all of them together. These are moments to savor for football fans because you're watching the best goalkeeper I've ever seen from New Zealand and the world, to be honest. Like, he's the best goalkeeper in the world ever. You're watching him play right there. Next week, you're going to watch him at Mount Smart Stadium, the greatest sports stadium in Aotearoa, where I think they can get 30,000 people there. He's awesome. And he made a couple of, there was one save that might have been off a cross, though, where like someone was flinging their boot up right in front of him. He just came forward and punched the ball out of his vicinity. It was a fantastic defensive performance to watch for Auckland FC. We can talk about that, but what's new? Auckland FC, great defensive team. The other thing that was a bit more surprising was the reliance on the young players. And we know, okay, they're probably going to select Marley Francois ahead of Moreno because Moreno, as you said, he's the super sub. He's going to come on. He's going to finish the game. He almost won the game or scored another goal, hit both posts with his shot. So Marley Francois starting on the left side of the field, but in this game, Jesse Randall's starting as well. And then Gillian comes off the bench. Like, that's a little bit more youngster involvement than I was prepared for. And they still won 1-0 away from home in Melbourne to set up the return leg.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, yeah, Max Mata wasn't available, so they couldn't go by that option. But like, you could have started Jake Brimmer as maybe a number 10 off of as the season began with him playing in that role behind Guillermo Mai. They went with a different option where Brimmer would, if you pick him, he's a very experienced player. He's played at this level before. He played against the Phoenix at this exact level for the Victory last season. You could have had that, and he would be someone who drops into midfield a little bit more. So that might have boosted your possession stuff a tad. You might have been able to play further up the field. That's not actually the strategy they were trying to play away from home against the Victory. They wanted Jesse Randall because he's a speedster, and behind the lines, he runs in the opposite direction, right? He runs towards the goal. And you got him. You got Marley Francois doing the same thing. You got Logan Rogerson. They didn't really use him a whole lot, although he ended up popping up with the decisive moment with the goal. Or the off a cross that came from the left where he's drifting inwards. But you know, they could have used Rogerson in the same way that they were maybe a little too I don't know, reliant on playing up that left side. I think that's maybe just the way it broke. Maybe that's because the Victory were attacking down that side and that's where they could counter from. I don't know. That's where the space was left. Who knows? They have to watch a replay with a microscope, and I don't really want to do that to figure out a small point. But they yeah, I mean that's an attacking move, right? Like, it didn't feel like necessarily, like, certainly that was the game built on outstanding, one of their best defensive performances of the whole season, and to do that in that occasion it's crazy stuff. But then I'm looking at that squad and I'm thinking, like, Hiroki Sakai won like 9 tackles or something. Like, he just shut down. But talking about maybe Victory attacking down the other side, probably because Sakai just shut down everything on his edge. Like, no one could get past him, let alone get across in to where Pinecker and Hall were both, I thought, fantastic as well. And maybe De Vries was the guy you could target a little bit more on the defensive side of things, but then De Vries obviously more than made up with that by being able to get forward still and whipping in the assist for the winning goal. So, yeah, like, amazing stuff there. And Sakai's played at World Cups. He's played in the Champions League of Asia and the Champions League of Europe. We know how supremely experienced he is. He wasn't going to be faced about an A-League semi-final, but at the same time, like I mentioned, Brimmer's coming off the bench. He's played at this level before, just last season. Tommy Smith's coming off the bench. Well, he's interesting thing about Smithy, when they won the Premier's play was him talking about how it's the first trophy he's ever won at club football. But he's played a long time for Ipswich Town in the English Championship, and that included playing in like playoff semi-finals. I don't think he made a final. I don't think they ever got to a playoff final, but they certainly played playoff semi-finals. I remember him scoring in one of them once. So he's played in massive games of significant importance there. Even someone like Nando Pinecker is a little younger and maybe hasn't played at a massive level, at club level. Well, he was one of the starters for the All Whites against Costa Rica a few years ago. And we could go through a lot of these guys with similar things. They're not just an experienced team; they're a team that has experience in big games and knows they knew how to handle the situation so well. They were so unfazed, and they just went out there and did the stuff that they've done best, but did it as well as they ever have in such an important game, which is not, I don't know if you'd say that about the Phoenix last season at the same stage. I don't think you could say that they quite matched their season performances when the biggest pressure was on in the same way, but Auckland FC did, where they just this like, oh man, like the swarming, bullying, defensive stuff was on such full display. And I noticed as well, I was looking at some of this stuff where it's some of the seasonal stats, because they are the team that commits the most fouls. But I noticed also they're in the bottom half for yellow cards received. So they foul the most, but they don't actually get anywhere near the most yellow cards. And I thought that was an interesting telling note as well, because you think about what kind of fouls get called for yellow cards. Often it's like it's cynical stuff, it's time wasting stuff, and it's also like dirty stuff, lunging tackles and whatever. Well, you don't actually see a lot of that from Auckland. They foul a lot, but they're not dirty fouls. And it's also late fouls. Chop down an attacker who was through, who had beaten you the first time, and you trip him up so he can't go any further. Well, they don't do that either, because to do that, you've got to get beaten in the first place. And Auckland FC don't, because they enforce their physicality on the opponents in like a proactive way, if that makes sense. Like they get there first. Verstrada will shove you over, but he's not shoving you over after you've beaten him. He's just getting to the ball first and shrugging you off. They impose themselves so well, and they did that brilliantly against the Victory, who frankly I didn't know how the Victory were going to break them down, and I don't think the Victory did either. Because you see some of the stuff that like Azani was having a little bit of a whinge in the post-match interview about it all. And like you didn't have an answer, mate. Like you didn't have a clue. But of course, they also managed to pop up and score a pretty decisive goal. I think even a 0-0 draw with that performance, I would have felt like that's Auckland FC stomping down on the tie and taking control. But to be able to take a lead to Mount Smart Stadium, even more so. Like this is exactly where they wanted to have them after that away leg.
You mentioned having Marley Francois, Jesse Randall, and Logan Rogerson, and the energy for an attacking sense. I thought
speed as well, yeah.
The speed, then it's a strategy for away, because they're going to concede possession, and the space will be in behind moving forward. What do we mean by that? Melbourne Victory are further up the field, so there's space behind their defenders for the fast guys of Auckland FC to get in. All of that is true, but I also think if you're as defensively excellent as Auckland FC is, and you have such clear focus and intention defensively, I know this to be true for Marley Francois and Logan Rogerson, because we've talked about it this season, but their defensive work is highly valuable, as well as their speed going forward. And maybe having the vibrant youth of Jesse Randall was also a defensive thing, where he's just running around. Just run around, work hard. Use your speed and energy to put pressure on players without the ball, because the moment you put pressure on them, they're passing into the cul-de-sac where the bullies are. Think of it like a neighborhood, or maybe a little tough neighborhood. A couple of gang members are down in the cul-de-sac. You push them into the cul-de-sac, Louis Verstraeta's there. He won't have his gang patch on because that's illegal, but he's there to take your stuff from you. And I think, yes, that is a good attacking move to have that pace and energy, but it's also a good defensive move to have that pace and energy because you're so well drilled and so your players are so classy defensively that you just buzz around up top, force the ball to go forward, bang, your lads are there right waiting for the ball. And just a couple of stats here. Now, obviously, Auckland FC, they're playing extra games than a lot of other teams. Cough, cough, Wellington Phoenix, but I don't want to go too hard on that. Like, shout out to Wellington Phoenix. We appreciate you. But the clean sheets, Alex Paulson, 13, most in the A-League. Shots saved, not shots fired at the Wellington Phoenix, but shots saved. Oluwayemi is the leader on 84. Now, there was a shot at the Wellington Phoenix because their goalkeeper's making the most saves. But Alex Paulson is tied for 6th on save shots on 73. So Alex Paulson has the most clean sheets, but he doesn't have the most save shots. That is summed up in that Wellington Phoenix win over the Melbourne Victory because he doesn't have to make as many saves as other goalkeepers because the defense is so good, but he can make the saves. He is an excellent goalkeeper doing that job.
Well, he did it last year for the Wellington Phoenix. He was making the most saves because that's how they defended, is they let teams shoot a lot. Whereas Auckland FC, they close you down in the midfield, so they don't allow those shots. So very different approaches. And the fact that he's also been the best goalkeeper in both of those seasons is kind of, it's another feather in his cap as well, isn't it? He's done it for two very contrasting styles of defense. Although there are some underlying consistencies, like Nando Peinecker and Finn Sermon just blocking everything that comes near them is a pretty consistent one.
Alex Paulson is also first for completed long passes. So Paulson has the most clean sheets and the most completed long passes. That just seems good. That just seems useful. The completed crosses, Franny de Vries is the only player in the A-League with over 170. And he's got 206. So that's Franny de Vries in a nutshell. But also Franny de Vries and Auckland FC in a nutshell. Auckland FC don't have a player with 10 goals, which is great because everyone scores goals. And they only need to score a few goals to win the game, 1 goal to win the game because they don't concede any goals. So they don't have a player. So there's 9 players in the A-League who have scored 10 goals. But Franny de Vries has 8 goal assists. And he is 6th, tied for 5th for the most goal assists. So de Vries has 8 goal assists, but Auckland FC don't have a player with 10 goals. So it would be better if de Vries had like 10 goal assists, and then I could say he's got 10 goal assists, but the Auckland don't have a player with 10 goals. I can't say that, but I can say there's a wide mix of players scoring the goals for Auckland FC, but there's also a wide, not a wide mix, there's a few different players getting on the end of Franny de Vries' crosses. So it's not like de Vries is always crossing to Chris Wood, or he can't because he's got Mai there, who is half the size of Chris Wood. But whether it's Mai, whether it's Mata, whether it's Logan Rogerson, whoever else, there's a variety of players on the end of Franny de Vries' crosses. He's also 3rd for the most chances created in the A-League, 56.
Where does Hiroki Sakai rank on those? Have you got him on the list?
He's not top 10, so that's all we got here is top 10s.
He's not top 10.
But
because he's the second most. I know he's second for assists for the Phoenix. I think he's 5 or 6 or something like that. The 2 leading assist makers are their fullbacks. We talk about what a great defensive team they are, but also their defense is contributing so much of their attack.
how do you feel just coming back to Mount Smart? Big weekend at Mount Smart, obviously, because the Warriors are playing the Raiders on Sunday. And Auckland FC, when is that game? That is Saturday 6 p.m. I do think they're going to be, I reckon they can get 30,000 people in there for this game. It's going to be massive. You kind of don't want you need to be ruthless in this game is the best way to say it. You do have the 1-0 advantage. Clarified there's no away goal situation, so they don't have like a 10-goal advantage with their away goal. But you do need to be ruthless even though you're 1-0 up, because obviously Victory have nothing to lose. Based on that performance, just what are you feeling? What's your gut vibe, your intuition about Auckland FC returning to Mount Smart to play the Victory on Saturday?
Well, it will be jam-packed. They've added extra seats. I know that. I don't know what the number they've managed to get up to. Whatever, as much as health and safety will allow you to. Whatever
30,
it is, it's going to feel like
30,000. I'm saying 30,000.
I don't think it's that high, but whatever it is, it's going to feel like 100,000 because they're all going to be Auckland fans. And yeah, I mean, if they score early, they'll have it exactly where they want it. Even if they don't, they haven't conceded a goal now in 270 minutes against Melbourne Victory this season. So they like playing against these opponents, and if they do what is hoped of them and win this, Mount Smart will also be hosting a grand final the following week. So, and that'll at the moment probably be against Melbourne City. They might have had a better chance against Manchester City. I don't know. Crystal Palace turned them up. So Melbourne City won 3-0 away in their away leg to Western United. Western United are the team that's beaten Auckland FC twice this season. Against Melbourne City, they've had a draw and a win. So I think that also is shaping up for something for what would be the preferable outcome for the final if that comes to pass. That would be easily the two best defensive teams in the competition, Melbourne City and Auckland FC. And Auckland FC just got to use that defensive prowess to prove it against Melbourne Victory on the weekend, because if they keep another one of those clean sheets, as they've done 3 times in a row against this team, they will be in the grand final whether they score or not.
Let's have a bit of a net session to finish with. I was going to ask you about your excitement for Wrexham coming to Aotearoa to play some football, but we obviously don't care about that.
I don't watch enough Disney Channel.
We have county championship cricket, and we also have the New Zealand A tour of Bangladesh. County championship wise, Matt Henry was playing for Somerset. He took some wickets. We got Tickner took wickets. Logan Van Beek took wickets. Nathan Smith, 40-odd wicket in both innings. Tom Latham, no runs. Henry Nichols, no runs. Ben Sears didn't play. Brett Hampton didn't play. So it was a solid, round of county championship cricket. We still have Susie Bates doing a thing for Durham in the women's competition as well. And there were fun moments like Nathan, like a couple deliveries that were epic. Some shots from Nathan Smith that were pretty epic as well. It was good to see them doing their thing in England. But whether it's the T20 leagues, whether it's county championship cricket, whether it's Wrexham has nothing to do with this, but maybe it's the headlines about Wrexham or anything else, I don't blame anyone for overlooking New Zealand A, the New Zealand A cricket team. But we will not be overlooking the New Zealand A cricket team, because they had a win in Bangladesh, which was, it's fun. It's fun to win in countries that have very different conditions to New Zealand. But there's something weird, very strange, considering how terrible New Zealand cricket is, and how bad New Zealand cricket is. There's something very strange happening here, where the New Zealand A cricket team Granted, this is only in the unofficial test format, in the long form format. New Zealand A is really good because they played 4 games against Australia A in 2023. 4 games, 3 wins, 1 draw. And the draw was in New Zealand. So in the New Zealand series, they had a win, then a draw. In the Australian leg of that series, they had 2 wins by 225 runs, by 68 runs. And now in their first long-form game in Bangladesh, they won by 70 runs. So the New Zealand A cricket team, keep in mind, there's a decent turnover of players in these series because the last series was 2023. There was turnover between the New Zealand league and the Australian league. So obviously there's going to be turnover for this Bangladesh tour. This Bangladesh team, or the team in Bangladesh, does just seem a lot younger. The New Zealand A cricket team in long form games, they have won 3 games in a row outside of New Zealand. 2 against Australia, 1 against Bangladesh. They have won 4 of their last 5 games. Like whether it's Auckland FC defensive stats and facts, whether it's the Warriors undeniable stats and facts, that's undeniable. The development team for the Black Caps have won 3 games in a row, 3 long form games in a row outside of New Zealand, and they have won 4 of their last 5 games. To me, this just sums up New Zealand cricket. Because we believe that New Zealand cricket is in a very healthy position. We have seen young players step into the Black Caps and do a great job and absorb the losses of legendary players with a minimal effect. And during this period, the New Zealand A team has been very good, excellent in 5-day games. This will not be overlooked at the niche case. And I think it's a celebration of how New Zealand cricket is poised at the moment. It's just amazing, to be honest. How does that all just hit you? Just those big ideas, how does that hit you?
Well, I forgot about the Australian stuff that preceded it because that's 5 games undefeated in the first class type stuff, which is beyond, I don't know, like you said, there's a lot of player turnover, so it's not necessarily the same guys over and over and over, but it also still that feels like it's enough to where it's beyond coincidence. And if you can't say maybe this is just like one really good squad that's winning a lot, well, maybe that actually makes it better if that's not the case, because it's saying that whoever they pick, the depth is there to where they can win games against equivalent players from other countries. I'd say other more populous countries, but they're all more populous countries in cricket than New Zealand. So that's the case no matter what format we're playing and against whoever they happen to be up against. So yeah, I mean, magical stuff. And that was that was a tough game too. Like, it's obviously the conditions in Bangladesh, but it was a low scoring game too. So you can't be throwing away runs. You got to keep getting consistent wickets. All your little cameos in the lower order with the bats are gonna be important. And obviously in Bangladesh too, the spinners were going to be crucial, and our spinners seem to outperform their spinners. So, or at least if they, I don't know which ones are the spinners on the scorecard for the Bangladeshis, but I do know that Eddie Ashok and Jaden Lennox took plenty of wickets across that, and that was basically what set up the victory in the end of it. So they played winning cricket themselves. There's a lot of good happy stuff there. And then on top of that, there's the another reflection of the healthy state of New Zealand cricket is the fact that these games were being played at all, right? Like the fact that they're sending a New Zealand A team over to Bangladesh to play these kind of things, the fact that they had a home and away series against Australia a couple of years ago and have done this fairly regularly for, a few years beyond before that, and there will be more in the future and all this good stuff. Like the fact that they're even playing these games is a positive thing. And then the fact that they're winning in the most important format as well, because a point you've noted on this is how they're not going and playing T20 games in these New Zealand A tours. They're playing 1 days and they're playing 4 or 5 days, whichever one. I don't know, multi-day cricket. Because those are the ones where you develop the most as a player. Like that's the purpose of this thing. So those are the games where they're putting them in, and then the toughest of them, which is the 2 innings each team, where it's pretty hard to fluke a win in those formats. It's generally the case, same as Test cricket, obviously the most obvious example of this, where the better team usually wins over the course of 5 days and 4 innings. That's how it tends to go. We've been getting great results in those. So this is all very happy stuff for New Zealand cricket. And if people don't realize that, I suppose it's that they weren't paying attention, or they were reading the wrong websites, obviously.
They've won 2 games in a row as well. They won the last 1-dayer and they have won the first multi-dayer. There you go. There's another term. I think we use first class, long form, unofficial test, and multi-dayer. There we go. Nice variety. Good use of English language. So they've won 2 games in a row. That's just like on this tour. So that's cool. Also, this is happening at a time when New Zealand has players playing T20 cricket in the IPL and the Pakistan League. There are players playing county championship cricket. And then you've got a New Zealand A squad winning in Bangladesh. And, well, that just shows you the New Zealand cricket depth. For starters, is that we produce so many cricketers for a small nation that we've got players in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and England right now in May. But also the Australian series, they were played at different kind of times of the year. So the games they won in Australia, I think, were later in the year. So there weren't the T20 leagues happening at that time. There wasn't the county championship cricket happening at that time. Whereas this is like a pure development group, because these players are below the county championship tier, or they're too young for that. Or Nick Kelly, Joe Carter, they're not quite at that level to be earning county championship gigs, which to me makes it even more impressive. As far as the performances go, run through the game. New Zealand scored 256. Mitch Hay led that innings with 81. Dean Foxcroft, 47. Then New Zealand bowled out Sri Lanka for 268. Christian Clark, 3 wickets. Josh Clarkson, 4 wickets. Abbas, Lennox, and Ashok took a wicket each. Second innings, Nick Kelly, big century, 122. Joe Carter, 58. New Zealand all out for 257. Bangladesh need 246 for victory. They are all out for 175. Ardie Ashok, 5 wickets. Lennox, 3 wickets. Clarkson and Christian Clark, a wicket each. As far as the overall stats go, Nick Kelly obviously hit a century. 50s to Mitch Hay and Joe Carter. And then Dean Foxcroft still playing that lower order role. Wasn't required to bowl as many overs with the ball, but he's still in that lower order all-rounder situation. He's next for runs, so they are the 4 batters who scored over 50 runs in the game. Ashok, 6 wickets at 4 RPO. Josh Clarkson, 5 wickets at 2.8 RPO. Jaden Lennox, 4 wickets at 1.8 RPO. Christian Clark, 4 wickets at 4.7 RPO. Mohamed Abbas, 1 wicket at 5.2 RPO. Foxcroft, only the 8 overs. Abbas bowled 8 overs as well. Foxcroft, 2.2 RPO. So Lennox bowled the most overs, 40.5. Ashok and Christian Clark both bowled 27 overs. Clarkson bowled 24 overs. But go back to the one-dayers, who are the leading wicket takers? Ashok and Christian Clark. So Christian Clark, 4 wickets at an average of 25 in the one-dayers, 4 wickets at an average of 32 in the multi-dayer. And then Ashok obviously took his big baggie. I do like Jayden Lennox because Jayden Lennox, he was kind of pigeonholed as a white ball bowler in New Zealand because he predominantly played for CD in the Super Smash when Ajaz Patel was less available. But Lennox has the skills to play all formats, and he's shown that in Bangladesh and this summer in the Plunkett Shield, where it's a bit more flighty, where it's a bit more spinny. You get more spin, you get more flight. Obviously, conditions help, but also the format is more conducive to those skills. But then we've seen in the Super Smash, he's probably one of the craftiest spinners going around as far as dotting him up, building pressure, taking wickets as well. So it's good to see him flexing out of that T20 bubble. And Josh Clarkson, second seamer in the team. The seamers for New Zealand, Christian Clark, Josh Clarkson, and Mohamed Abbas. Well, 2 of them probably bat top 6 for CD and Wellington, respectively. And I've already mentioned that I love Christian Clark's batting ability. Like Ashok, he's already a black cap. He's the next black cap spinner. Very impressive for starters. Lennox, love what he's doing. But my favorite bowler in the whole tour at the moment is Christian Clark. So I've just been watching him develop slowly for Northern Districts. And now he's taking wickets as a seamer in very tricky conditions in both formats. So I like what I'm seeing there. Nick Kelly, what do we have? Nick Kelly's last few Plunkett Shield seasons. So since 2021, these are his Plunkett Shield seasons. 579 runs at an average of 44.5, 675 runs at an average of 51.9, 470 runs averaging 29.3, 605 runs averaging 46.7, 749 runs averaging 57.6. So before this century in Bangladesh, he averaged over 40 in 4 of the last 5 Plunkett Shield seasons. Joe Carter also scored runs. He hit 2 centuries on the New Zealand A Tour of India in 2022. Now, fair play, New Zealand A didn't win as many games on the 2022 tour. So I did cut off my New Zealand A excellence conveniently before that Australian series started, because they didn't actually win much in India. Mitch Hay, everyone knows, I love Mitch Hay. And this is why I love Mitch Hay. ODI record, 41.5 average, strike rate of 104. First class record, 47.9 average. And he has a excellent T20 career strike rate as well. 140 in 46 T20 games. Very good cricketer. Any other bits and pieces? No. I don't think so. Abbas, he scored 7 runs in this game. And he scored 19 runs in 2 one-dayers. So he's kind of just battling for a way. Matt Boyle scored 1 run in his 2 one-dayers. And he scored 16 runs in the multi-dayer. So there are lads struggling for runs, but the team's doing all right. The team's getting the job done. And it's really fun to watch all of this happening. The first 11, obviously I mentioned a bunch of the players there, but I'll list them now in order. Reese Mariu, Joe Carter captain. So Nick Kelly was the captain of the one-dayers, Joe Carter captain of the multi-dayers. Reese Mariu, Joe Carter, Nick Kelly, Muhammad Abbas, Matt Boyle, Josh Clarkson, Mitchell Hay, Dean Foxcroft, Christian Clark, Adi Ashok, Jaden Lennox. Anything else, cricket-wise, you'd like to throw at me?
Well, there is a second game on Wednesday as well for this team, so they'll be trying to make it another 6 games undefeated, 4 away wins in a row, just add to all that. Are you expecting, they probably, this type of tour, they probably will make a couple changes, right? Like who else is there maybe might come into the equation for the second game?
Dale Phillips. He could get in there. Zach Folks, Curtis Heafy, and Ben Lister. I think they are the guys who didn't play. Any of them could get a game. Any of them could be rotated in. I think, well, I got this wrong with Christian Clark and Jane Lennox after the one-day series, but I think someone like Muhammad Abbas is probably best served to play the second game and just battle through these learnings and this development. Whereas like Matt Boyle, you can probably give him a rest and give someone else a crack. I don't see any need to change the seamers, especially because Lister and Fox, they've already played Black Caps cricket. So they can learn through the skills required to bowl in Bangladesh. And I can see one of them being selected ahead of Josh Clarkson. But I do want to see Christian Clark given that opportunity to keep playing in these conditions and keep learning. And I think Dale Phillips played all 3 of the one-dayers. So who played all 3 one-dayers? Jaden Lennox, Nick Kelly, Dale Phillips. So I think Dale Phillips should get a crack as well. So you could take out Abbas, Boyle, and Clarkson, bring in Phillips, Fox, and someone else. I don't know. Who knows? We'll wait and see. But whoever is selected will do the job for New Zealand. We know that for sure. No parting words from yourself?
Nah. Nothing to say. I can't remember. I only know the one Inuit word, so I've kind of used that one already.
Betty, we will wrap it up there. Big up to yourself. Appreciate your earballs, eardrums, eyeballs combination. We appreciate your earballs, your eye drums. Big up yourself. Love yourself. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful. Church.